Hello players, welcome to PC Couch Gamer. I'm your host, the internet's Buzz Stringer. This is Couchplay, where we look at PC games and the experience on the big screen. So it's not a gameplay review video, this is how well the games actually feel and run when you are sitting there. Well, not there exactly, that's my seat. Here are the specs for the setup, which you can pause and read at your leisure if you wish. This is a 55-inch 4K Samsung TV, and the seating area is approximately 10 foot back, which is ideal conditions for console-like experiences, but with the power of the master race. Our weapons of choice are the DualShock 4 controller, the Steam controller, Xbox One controller, and a keyboard and mouse to fall back on in case things don't always play nice. So let's party on, Garth, because we are looking at 3 games today: Hearthstone, SimCity and Roller Coaster Tycoon World, which we'll be starting with and how they play while sitting here. Roller Coaster Tycoon World is on the Steam store, which means installation is pretty straightforward, which is nice because that's not always the case. So we're going to start up the game and we are going to first try it out to see how it handles with the Steam controller. Okay, so in terms of menu navigation, the Steam controller is the only one that works. The Xbox One and the PS4 DualShock controller just aren't playing nice in this menu. So that's not the fault of the other controllers, that's entirely the fault of Atari. So in order to navigate this menu, I can't use up, down, left and right, the arrow keys like you would expect from a console-based game. But this requires using the touchpad on the Steam controller. Now the controller configuration for the Steam controller is the official one from Roller Coaster Tycoon World, which kind of makes me think that they could have put a little bit more work into the menu navigation with the controller. And they've locked everyone else out if you don't have a Steam controller. Well, locked out the menu at least, and you'd have to go back to this, which isn't ideal if you're 10 feet away from the screen. So whilst I can see the performance tanking in the background for some reason, I'm going to have a look at these settings. So in terms of UI, everything at the moment is perfectly readable from 10 feet away. All the settings seem readable, controls, credits, can read all of those names, like I'm doing some kind of R exam. Vanararatai. Yeah, that's the one. And you can sit and read the legal info at your leisure if you wish. All perfectly readable, just about, from 10 feet away. So let's dive into the story and see how the UI looks in-game. Okay, so this, you'll need... Try your hand at a building in an established park. Now that's not me being slightly slow, that is very difficult to read from this distance. Okay, so this screen, perfectly readable from 10 feet away. Welcome to the High Roller Investors Club. Let's go. This game has been out a while, and this is the beginning tutorial with these objectives. Move the camera by pressing the Sprite 39 and Sprite 39, Sprite 39 and Sprite 39. Zoom in and out by using Sprite 38. Fantastic.
Well done, Atari.
So the default control scheme isn't too bad. It will probably take about 20 minutes to half an hour for me to tweak it exactly how I like it if I was going to spend any amount of time on this game. But if you're happy with just the defaults, then it is perfectly playable out of the box. And in case you're wondering, because all the sprite information is missing, you hold down the analog stick and use this touchpad to tilt the camera. That took me a little longer than I care to admit to figure that one out. So in terms of playability, it is okay. There's certain elements of the UI that you just cannot make out from 10 feet away, and will definitely give you eye strain if you try and read those teeny tiny numbers on there. And there's no options in the menu to scale the UI either. There may be something with mods, but definitely the vanilla experience is quite tricky to read, especially if you're looking at stats and things throughout your park. You're going to have a hard time reading all those numbers. And the old trick of kind of force scaling a UI by setting the resolution lower than what your screen is so the text appears bigger doesn't work either. The Couchplay score for Roller Coaster Tycoon World is 6 out of 10. They definitely lost points for the UI, some elements are just impossible to read, and lack of UI scaling in the menu. In order to bump the score up, they would need to improve both those things and perhaps a little bit more thought, time and effort into the default controller scheme for the Steam controller, and if they're working on that, then drop in a little bit of support for these babies. Next two games, the installation's a bit more tricky, especially if you're trying to play it from the couch, because they both have their own game launchers. We've got EA Origin on the SimCity side and Battle.net on the Hearthstone side. And if you ever tried to add the link manually in Steam Big Picture mode with either of those games, you'll realise that Steam Overlay stops working completely, which means you can't use this or any other controller, only the keyboard and mouse, which is a shame. So in terms of menu navigation, it is literally the touchpad as a mouse. Now keep in mind that this game was never designed to work with a controller and never designed to work with a Steam controller either. Thanks EA. So I'm going to go back to a city that I was playing previously. This city doesn't look like I've got very far here, so maybe it was on a different save. The controller configuration I'm using is by Ghost Panic, and it is the SimCity bindings layout there. So I've just spent about 20 minutes with SimCity, and unfortunately it's pretty much impossible to read most of what's on the screen at this distance. And whilst the control bindings actually worked rather well if you're close enough to read what's on the screen, unfortunately if you're that close enough to read what's on the screen, you might as well sit down and use these anyway. So unless EA can do some work on the UI and controller schemes, then at this point, without mods, it is not couch playable. So next on the list is Hearthstone, and unfortunately the installation for Hearthstone is just as convoluted as SimCity, so you have to load up the battle.net launcher in order to install it and go from there. And unfortunately if you want to play it from the couch with a controller, it doesn't get that much easier. So you have to install it from Steam as a non-Steam game. Now there was a great Reddit post which is linked in the video description below on how to get the Steam overlay working with Hearthstone. It's as simple as downloading a zip folder and adding a non-Steam game to Steam. Unfortunately, it does take you out of the whole big picture experience, but you only have to do this once and it should play flawlessly from then on. And I tell you, playing Hearthstone with a controller on Steam Big Picture is pretty damn fun. Now there's a few controller configurations out there for the Steam controller, but personally I think I'm going to spend a few hours creating my own and having a better experience overall. I'll let you know when that controller configuration is up. In terms of UI and things like that with Hearthstone, it is actually perfect for a 10-foot experience. Everything is nice and big, text is nice and easy to read. Menu navigation after you set up the Steam controller should be pretty straightforward. It's pretty much using that as a mouse, which is pretty much all you use on Hearthstone anyway, but you can configure the buttons to do some things like end turn and trigger hero powers and open packs and things like that. So having the Steam controller is definitely going to be a bonus there. If you don't have the Steam controller, you can configure an Xbox controller to do the same thing. So you can have the analog sticks as mice, and you can configure buttons to do various other things. That feature, as far as I'm aware, is only available in Steam Big Picture, but it does make Hearthstone a great fun experience to have from the couch. The Couchplay score for Hearthstone I'm going to give 7 out of 10. It is perfectly playable, and it would be a damn sight easier if Blizzard just swallowed their pride and let it launch with Steam Big Picture natively. What did we learn from episode 1? We learned that if you are more than 10 feet away from the screen, SimCity is unplayable because you can't read anything on the screen, and if you want to read it you should probably move closer, and if you're closer you'll probably be using a keyboard and mouse. Anyway, we've learnt that Roller Coaster Tycoon World could use a bit of work on the controller side, and that the Steam controller will save your ass in most mouse-based situations and would work great with Hearthstone. We have also learnt that this is a cool t-shirt, and if you like it you can pick one up in the link in the video description below. And until next time, keep playing.